Flying Dragon Slasher, the #1 hidden weapon in Jianghu. Shaped like a boomerang, with a dragon head decorating the tip. Once released, it can take a man's head from 100 paces. It can split trees and crack rocks, leaving no blade of grass standing. Killing silently, it's dozens of times more powerful than the blood droplet. It's a powerful weapon for long-range combat. Such a powerful weapon, yet easily defeated by a fishing net. Simon is the sole inheritor of the Flying Dragon Slasher and the chief guard by the side of the evil Prince Qin. Qin frames the righteous and is cruel and inhumane. He's despised by the people of the world. Perhaps it is heaven's will. But a poisonous sore has grown on Qin's back. For months, the imperial physicians have been helpless, and the sore has worsened. Qin is in agonizing pain every day. In a fit of rage, he beheaded all the imperial physicians. He then ordered head eunuch Yang to find Frank, a renowned doctor from the imperial hospital, to treat him. Frank is a man of integrity who hates evil. He flatly refused and was unwilling to treat Qin. Head eunuch Yang then ordered his men to forcibly take Frank to the palace. Knowing Frank wouldn't bow to force, Qin resorted to a ploy. He pretended to release Frank, while crying out in pain. A doctor's heart is compassionate. Frank couldn't bear to see him die, so he turned back to help. After the diagnosis, Frank discovered that Qin was suffering from one of the most potent among the 72 poisonous sores, known as 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix. The poison originates in the bone and penetrates the marrow. Without a 1,000-year-old longevity vine, Qin's life would be forfeit within 7 days. However, this medicine is extremely rare. Only Frank's close friend in Songlong Town, Daniel, possesses this medicine. Frank immediately wrote a letter to Daniel, asking Qin to send someone to fetch the medicine. Because of Qin's notoriety, Frank could only pretend in the letter that the crown prince was ill and urgently needed the longevity vine. Frank also instructed that the longevity vine should be roasted over a fire and ground into powder before applying to the affected area. It would be effective within 3 days. However, the medicine must not get wet, otherwise it would lose its potency. As soon as Frank left, Qin betrayed him and ordered Simon to kill the imperial physician. Simon pursued Frank, drew his Flying Dragon Slasher, and swung it. In a flash, he took off Frank's head. Qin then handed the letter to Simon and ordered him to rush to Songlong Town to retrieve the longevity vine for him. Qin also promised that once the task was accomplished, he would give Simon endless wealth and glory. Head eunuch Yang suggested to Qin that they should send a few more people to secretly monitor Simon, just to be safe. In fact, Head eunuch Yang wanted to use this opportunity to eliminate Simon and take all the credit for himself. Head eunuch Yang summoned the 6 top masters of the palace, promising them wealth and glory, and asked them to help him seize the longevity vine. Head eunuch Yang deceived Simon into thinking that the 6 masters were there to help him. The group rode their horses and quickly arrived at Songlong Town. Daniel is a secluded master. To avoid complications, Simon took only 2 people with him to fetch the medicine, while the others waited in the woods. After reading the letter, Daniel took out the longevity vine. Just as he was about to hand it over, one of them let it slip. When Daniel heard that it was Qin who needed the medicine, he immediately regretted it and refused to hand over the elixir. Seeing that the jig was up, Simon could only try to snatch it by force. But to his surprise, the 3 of them were no match for Daniel and were all knocked to the ground. Seeing that force wouldn't work, Simon could only signal his men to retreat. But before they could go far, Simon turned around and drew his Flying Dragon Slasher. He threw it at Daniel. After throwing one, he threw another. Under the double attack, Daniel was beheaded. They snatched the longevity vine and left after striking down Daniel's servant. Daniel's daughter, Lucy, returned home and saw that her father had been murdered. She was heartbroken. The servant, with his last breath, told her the identity of the murderer. The group reunited in the woods, and Simon was lecturing his talkative teammate. Terry bumped into them by accident. He knew Daniel and recognized the longevity vine at a glance. Terry felt that something was fishy. He used his lightness skill and iron finger technique to snatch the longevity vine. The iron finger technique and the Flying Dragon Slasher are 2 ultimate skills of Simon's sect. Simon guessed that the one who stole the medicine must be his fellow disciple, Terry. He asked the others to go to the 10-mile slope and went to Terry's house alone. Terry denied stealing the longevity vine. Simon could only leave. Terry's mother was worried about Daniel's family and asked Terry to go and check on them. Just as Terry left, Simon walked out of the bushes and tried to go back to find the longevity vine. Terry's mother heard a noise and fought with him. Simon used his flying dragon slasher to kill Terry's mother. After some searching, Simon finally found the longevity vine. Terry arrived at Daniel's house and met Lucy, who was about to go out for revenge. Lucy told him about the tragedy at home. Before they could leave, they spotted Simon down the hill. Realizing he had been tricked, Terry hurried home, only to find his mother dead and the longevity vine gone. The revenge of killing his mother is irreconcilable. After burying his mother, Terry went with Lucy to hunt down Simon. Simon, who had retrieved the longevity vine, returned to the inn and told the others that he hadn't found Terry, and that they had to go back and report to the prince and think of another way. He then casually took a radish from the store. That night, each of them had their own thoughts. None of them believed that he hadn't gotten the longevity vine. So a big drama of fighting for the medicine unfolded. They fought each other, and one of them even lost his life. The remaining 5 realized that they had been fighting over a radish, and that they had been fooled. At that moment, Simon had already ridden away from the inn. The others hurriedly chased after him. The one who was left behind was killed by Lucy. The next day, Terry caught up with Simon. The two fought. Terry's weapons were taken away one after another, and he was at a disadvantage. At that moment, Lucy joined the fight, 2 against 1. Simon gradually found it difficult to cope. He fled all the way to the edge of the cliff. Samantha, another master, also arrived. 3 against 1. They forced Simon to unleash his ultimate move. The flying dragon slasher smashed the rocks and Simon took the opportunity to escape. The 3 made a pact, one for revenge, the other for the reward. They decided to work together to deal with Simon. Samantha and the others waited in the ruined temple. They waited for Simon, who was sheltering from the rain, and subdued him together. Simon took out the longevity vine and threw it into the fire. Everyone thought that the longevity vine was destroyed, but they didn't know that the longevity vine had to be burned into charcoal to be used. Back at the inn, Samantha realized that they had been tricked and hurried back to the ruined temple. But Simon had already taken the charred medicine. The 3 went their separate ways to chase after him. On the way, Lucy rescued a fisherman and his daughter who were almost assaulted. Terry and Samantha also found Simon. But the flying dragon slasher was too powerful. Samantha used her beauty to try to steal the flying dragon slasher, but was seen through by Simon. Simon took out the flying dragon slasher and escaped again. They chased him to the rapids. The longevity vine would lose its effectiveness upon contact with water. They planned to knock Simon into the water. After a few rounds, none of them had the upper hand. Simon, in his hurry, forgot Frank's instructions and was forced to jump into the water. Simon swam across the rapids and found a fast horse to rush back to the palace. When he poured out the medicine, he found that it had all turned into water. It had lost all its potency. Cheen was as good as dead. Cheen was furious and wanted to kill Simon to vent his anger. Simon fought his way out of the palace, where he ran into Terry and Lucy. He used his flying dragon slasher, cutting through iron rods and iron rings. Outmatched, they were escaped by Simon. Cheen put a high price on Simon's head. Terry and Lucy were also looking for him everywhere. Samantha told them that Shuangshi fishing village was desolate and remote, and Simon might be hiding there. They arrived at the fishing village and watched the fishermen casting their nets. Terry was inspired and realized that they could use fishing nets to counter the flying dragon slasher with softness. Lucy also met the father and daughter she had saved before. With their help, they worked day and night to make large nets of cowhide tendons. They set them up around the fishing village, ready to deal with Simon. It wasn't long before Simon, who was about to leave by boat, arrived as expected. At this time, all the masters from the palace also charged out and surrounded Simon, attacking him together. During the fight, Samantha and head eunuch Yang were both killed. Simon used the ultimate move of the flying dragon slasher again. Under the continuous attacks, 2 more people were killed before they could dodge. Only Terry and Lucy remained. They pulled down the fishing net, and the flying dragon slasher was repeatedly bounced back. Simon realized the problem and cut down the wooden stakes. They were both wounded. Finally, they threw the fishing nets and covered the flying dragon slasher at the same time, finally breaking the flying dragon slasher. And Simon died by his own flying dragon slasher. In the end, the fate of all the villains perfectly reflected the saying, "What goes around comes around. Heaven spares no one." Flying Dragon Slasher is an early action movie from 1976. The story is not complicated. It revolves around obtaining the medicine. It's interspersed with multiple scenes of the Flying Dragon Slasher. Although it doesn't have fancy special effects, it's still amazing. There are many familiar faces among the actors. Did you recognize any of them? Leave a comment below and let's discuss. This is Kung Fu Movie Recaps from YouTube. Until next time.